I want to really introduce you to the guilds. Now, in the 13th and 14th centuries, guilds laid the financial foundation for Florence and were the center of economic activity, giving the city its stability and its prosperity. The guilds, or arte, were traditional male organizations, primarily composed of merchants, artisans, and craftsmen. This is really the skilled middle class, all with similar social, political, and economic leanings, which would form these guilds to protect their mutual interests. Of course, if I'm a candle maker, I don't want outside candle makers coming into town offering cheaper wares. It's very isolationist. Much like today's unions, each guild had a set of rules, elected its own officials, and had individual treasuries. Each guild also had a representative in city government, which shows you how powerful they are, whose function was to regulate trade and industry. Guilds were also major public patrons of art and provided funding for charities. The oldest and most wealthy were the wool guilds in Florence, which employed roughly 30,000 workers and had 200 workshops at the beginning of the 14th century. The most important guild was that belonging to judges and notaries, which is, of course, quite important because of their job, but not necessarily the most influential. To become a guild member, one had to learn a trade and apprentice to a guild master. So guild masters needed apprentices for assistants, and apprentices needed masters for education. At this point, I should point out, all of the artists we're going to look at, whether it's Michelangelo, Donatello, or any of the other Ninja Turtles, are running a workshop. None of them are working individually. It's kind of a misnomer that we have of the period. Since young men could not apprentice to their fathers, parents would pay for their children, typically between the ages of 7 and 13, to apprentice and learn the rudiment of a trade. This could usually take anywhere from 2 to 7 years. Next, the apprentice progressed to journeyman, a day worker who earned a salary. And he was considered competent in his craft and could travel, so he was for hire. To become a master, one had to produce a masterpiece, which is where we get the term, which had to be accepted by the guild members. Once accepted, the person received the title of master craftsman and could take on apprentices of his own, whereas a journeyman could just work on his own with assistants, but not with apprentices. This whole system basically controls both the people who can work in it, but also the prices that can be charged so that you can only differentiate based on skill. They're going to control how many people can work in the field so it doesn't become overcrowded. It's a good idea in a very isolated world. Now, of course, it would be different in a global environment where we live today, but this is how things work as we move into the 15th century.